the Q&A portion, but I think that I think we wanted to talk a little bit though before we go about Mandalorian.
Have to.
We got to talk about Mandalorian.
Have to. We have to talk about this.
What is on your mind in regards to Mando?
Look. This is what happens when you have people who know the lore, love the franchise, know the franchise, actually contribute to the franchise. This is the difference you're starting to see. I mean, it not only looks like Star Wars, it feels like Star Wars. Like and I'm even going past the what is it the I guess you would call them fan service moments. I'm going past on that. It feels like Star Wars. The characterization feels right. The characters look like they inhabit the world, just like beside our classic characters that we know and love. I mean, it's Star Wars. There's no getting around it. It's Star Wars. It feels like Star Wars, and it's one of the few times that I've had recently that it's like, oh wow, okay, this is it. Like this is what I remember. This is what it's all these. My childhood's coming back. It's really cool. It's just a fantastic series. It's very it has a bold vision. It's going in a lot of interesting directions. It's how it can be integrated into the larger Star Wars world is fascinating, right? It's just even little things too. Like for example, in not this previous episode, but the previous episode before that, where we had the it's going to be spoilers.
We can do spoilers.
Okay, all right. Where we saw Ahsoka for the first time.
Yes.
That episode. They, you had Mando mention. Oh yeah, well they have two HK-87 droids. HK-87. That's going back to Knights of the Republic. HK-47.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the Knights of the Republic timeline, where HK-47 comes from, is supposed to be 4,000 years before the Galactic Civil War, before the movies as we know them today. Their timeline. Well, if you adjust for 4,000 years, 1, 2, 3, 4, HK-87, boom, it's right there. And it's. I thought that I was like, oh, man, that's really cool. That is obviously somebody knew the lore, know where to pull stuff from, and boom, slapped it right in there. Other things too, like we just saw them on a more fleshed out appearance with the Dark Troopers.
Yes.
I had a my thinking was, oh, those are Dark Troopers. Those are Dark Troopers back when they were first introduced at the very tail end of the Ahsoka episode. I was like, that's what they're doing. And it's like, if you know Dark Troopers, that's going way back to like the Dark Forces game series back in like the 90s. That's where the Dark Forces Dark Troopers come from. And to see their inclusion, it's like, oh my God, somebody actually knew the lore to that extent to actually introduce them, and it works.
Well, that's the fantastic thing about Filoni. This guy is like, a walking encyclopedia for Star Wars. He loves this stuff like crazy. And then you have, Jon Favreau, which also a huge fanboy in and of himself. And then he's a great director on top of that. And you have these great men and women, Deborah Chow, and, all these great people working on this show.
Yep.
I mean, it works so perfectly. And the cool thing too, and like you said, it feels like Star Wars. It really does. And it feels like Star Wars it's like it stays true to the Star Wars energy and the vibe about family. Yes. But it kind of redefines it in a way too. Like we've seen a lot of different things. We've seen brother-sister relationships, right? With Luke and Leia and things of that nature. Husband-wife with Anakin and Padme. But we've never really seen the family dynamic of what we see with Mando and Grogu, Baby Yoda. So it introduces, we never seen that dynamic before, like the single dad kind of vibe. Mm-hmm. It introduces that new version of the family to the Star Wars lore. It's true to the overall vision of Star Wars of being family, but it's a new take on it, and it's so brilliant. It's such a different direction, but still so familiar. I absolutely love that.
And Dave Filoni's philosophy is like not just family, but friendship.
Right.
That's kind of the theme of
Han and Chewie
stories. Yeah. That his saying is friends are the most valuable resource in the galaxy. So it is his kind of thing, and you can kind of feel that from this. Mando's making kind of friends that he's pulling from along the way, and it feels it just has a good feel to it, but also too the the kind of Grogu Mando dynamic is really cool for the reason that you say. I mean, it's just all those things, and it's like, wow, you have people that not only know the lore but know how to tell a great story, and it's just all coming in this beautiful mix, and honestly, it's pulled some Phantom Menace types and stuff into it, saying that's not bad. I will continue watching your show.
Yeah, so it's not too shabby.
It's very cool. It is awesome. They're pulling it. They're actually pulling it off, and now we know we've got Thrawn maybe being reintroduced, which would go along with this time period of the Thrawn trilogy. Back in the Legends days now, but it's all kind of happening. It's all kind of it's really cool.
Well, and the cool thing too, and this is kind of like what Star Wars has sort of done in the past, and Lucas did this too. Like the prequels, when those came out, obviously they were panned, and a lot of fans didn't like them, or there was a lot of critiques. And I've always loved the prequels. I am a Hayden Christensen fanboy. I think he was phenomenal as Anakin. I know that a lot of people disagree; they don't like his acting, but I actually thought he did really, really well. But I digress. I mean, but I do like the prequels, but a lot of people did not.
Yeah.
But what George Lucas did, which was very brilliant, was like he sort of introduced this like ancillary material with the Clone Wars to sort of fill in gaps, and to sort of like the prequels gave you the outline or the bones, and then the Clone Wars kind of put the meat on those bones. Yep. I feel like Mando's kind of doing the same thing, and they really have an opportunity here to do, because the sequel trilogy, like you said, with Phantom Menace, and there's been a lot of critiques about that trilogy. What they can do with Mando is they can sort of do what George did with the prequels. Sort of put some meat on those bones, and I think we're kind of seeing that a little bit with those tanks in that one episode. We thought maybe the prelude to like the cloning for Snoke and things like that. Mm-hmm. They're setting it up,
Well, you're seeing even the troop transports that the stormtroopers came down in. Those are very reminiscent of the troop transports that we see at the beginning of Episode 7. So, I think you're seeing. I think you are seeing that. I think you're seeing like, okay, how can we provide the connective tissue to really bring these two worlds in and really make them part of the much larger story that Star Wars deserves and rightfully is.
Yeah.
It's just. It's tough. It's tough to do world building in a very interesting way.
Yeah,
I thought prequels went too far. The new trilogy maybe didn't go far enough.
Right.
And this is really an avenue that Mandalorian can actually take to integrate these new worlds. So I think it's fascinating. I think it's really, really interesting. I'm just so marveled at the really consistency that this series brings to the lore. How many things they pull from constantly, and you can say that's fan service, but it's like it's on that line. It's definitely like references that you get from the previous films, but it makes sense in the larger context of the world.
Right. It's not corny.
No.
It makes sense. It's fan service. Like, yeah, look at this. This is cool.
Yeah.
But it's not done in a way where it's cornball, cheesy, doesn't fit. It makes sense. Like the whole Boba Fett thing makes total sense for this series,
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. And part of the, integrating stuff from Legends. In Legends, Boba Fett did live and, kind of, had an identity past when we last saw him in the Sarlacc pit in Return of the Jedi. And we're kind of seeing that, right? We're seeing that with the implementation of Boba, and they brought back the actor, which is really cool. And so it has that kind of consistency with it. And it's just, and you got the Slave One, and it's like, okay, this is kind of working. This is kind of, I can feel this, and I think they're doing an excellent job. I really do. I think the show is coming to its own. I think it's must watch. It's got that label on it every single week, and I think it's really brilliant.
I completely agree, man. I completely agree. And one thing I want to ask you is because with the Ahsoka episode, right?
Yeah.
She said, take Grogu, Baby Yoda, to the Seeing Stone,
Yes.
and a Jedi will come. Maybe a Jedi will sense him and come. And the next episode,
the ultimate
went to
question.
the Seeing Stone, but no one ultimately came. But I still think that story hasn't been done yet. That whole thing hasn't fully completed yet. I do think we're going to see a Jedi come.
Oh yeah.
You know, but what's your prediction though? Like, who do you think is going to be the guy or the girl who's going to come? Who's going to get the signal from Grogu and show themselves for that?
Well, I mean, listen, Luke was attempting to establish an academy.
Yeah.
Between the events of 6 and 7, right? I mean, that was happening. So any number of possibilities there, although it may not have, the timeline might not be, completely coherent with that idea, but that was happening. If Thrawn is back, is Ezra back? Yeah. Is that what we're ultimately going with? I mean, that was Ahsoka's mission.
Right.
At the very end there was to find Ezra, and maybe she did. Maybe, maybe pieces had to be in play for him to actually come back. That's an interesting scenario. What about Luke? Luke's still out there. It's not like he went. He was supposed to be contributing to the New Republic during this time period in some way. He did train a little bit of Leia, and we know that happened. So there's any number of possibilities, and I think this is why they went down this route, is just to
play with us,
to have that ultimate question, like, who is that Jedi that Ahsoka's talking about?
Well, I mean, those are great guesses, and I also think that I think Obi-Wan Kenobi is a possibility. And look, if it wasn't for the Obi-Wan series, and I know this sounds really cynical, but if it wasn't for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series coming out soon, I probably wouldn't include him in that short list. But because that's coming, I could definitely see the desire to sort of plant that seed or that connectivity and have Kenobi come in and kind of get people hyped, because it would be Ewan McGregor. It would fans would go freaking nuts. Yeah. And it would really kind of catapult, okay, well, this is what's coming now with Kenobi. I can definitely see that happening. Kenobi, I think, is definitely on the short list.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I never thought about that possibility, but you could make it work. Again, it would be Ian McGregor, but it would be Alec Guinness.
Right.
Ian McGregor, which would be
version.
It'd be a very interesting dynamic there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can see that. I can see that happening, because it would sort of play to their next series. I could definitely see, Bob Iger and everything being like, oh, that's good. Synergy.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see. I could definitely see them going that route. Just for. I mean, it would be, one. It would be, it would be fan service, but it would be. There's a proper way to integrate it, and it would definitely set up for the next show, for sure. There's no question. I know. Have we heard anything about the Obi-Wan series? Because I've heard that it was that whole team there is not where it should be.
Yeah, well, the last thing I heard, which is actually pretty recently, I think like a week ago, I heard that they're starting filming on that in January.
Oh, okay.
So it's a go. I just hope that Deborah Chow is still connected to it, because I haven't heard her name connected to it in a long time, and I think what she did with Mandalorian was freaking amazing. I really want her connected to the Kenobi series. I want to see what she can do with that. But as far as I know, last thing I heard, it was like about a week or so ago, filming starts for Kenobi in January. So
any new series, any new projects, just have people behind the scenes know the Lord, know what Star Wars is, and it'll be right as rain. You can essentially do whatever, but understand what Star Wars is, understand the lore. Okay. And then go forward. Look, and what's really fascinating to me is just the scale of this show. Just you can have like the Krayt Dragon, which is we've never seen that on screen before.
Right.
This huge epic, introduction to the series. To small little details like the Krayt Dragon Pearl afterwards, it's like, oh, that's what the same people, they're looking for the pearl.
Awesome.
Sure enough, that's, and then you see Boba Fett. fighting stormtroopers. What he's doing it with a gaffy stick. Where'd he get the gaffy stick? Well, from his time on Tatooine. So it's all these little references, but they all make sense. They all are consistent. They're all coherent with the world, and I just love that.
I love it.
Right up my alley.
I absolutely love it. And then they're kind of planting seeds for what would become the First Order, and things like that. So it kind of ties into the new sequel trilogy.
Yep.
And but it plays to the old trilogy.
Yep.
And it's just freaking brilliant.
Oh yeah. I mean, even if you look at Legends, there was a remnant of the Empire. These things did exist, and now it's like, okay, well, we know there's a First Order, so we'll just tie the two, and it's working out. It's working out well. I'm very excited for the series. I'm very excited about where it goes. There's a lot of loose ends that can be tied up right now in really creative ways. I'm all in, man. I'm all in.
I'm all in too, man. It's a fun little series, and really, like, man, did Disney hit the gold mine with Baby Yoda or what?
Oh my god!
I wish I had. I mean, my God! I thought the Frozen phenomenon was something unreal. Like when Frozen came out, it was like I've never seen anything like this.
Yep.
And then Baby Yoda comes on the scene, and it's like, oh yeah, we'll hold my beer.
Oh, it's insane. It's like nothing you've ever seen before. I mean, the guy, he steals every single shot he's in. So that's
he's great.
It can work for you, or it can work against you. So you have to use it properly. But steals every single scene he's in. It's just merchandise, just a gold mine. I mean, just even today, it's kind of interesting because I thought, oh well, the strike while the hour was hot. They had to get product in, and COVID happened and all that kind of stuff. No, he's still extremely popular.
Yeah.
From what I understand, that product line is still, extremely successful. Interesting. We just saw a patent application actually for a Grogu type Alexa or what do they call it? It's not Google Home anymore. It's is it Nexus or something? Anyway, Nest. It's like a product like that where you could have this kind of something that looks like a Grogu figure. You could talk to it and it actually do commands for you, like turn off your lights, so forth to the Force. It was like, okay, there's endless possibilities with this product right here. or with this character, just endless. So yes, goldmine.
Absolute gold mine. I mean, you have a character like Yoda who is so beloved. My grandma, by the way, rest in peace. My grandma though loved Yoda. That was one of her favorite characters. And but a lot of people, and she wasn't like a huge Star Wars nerd, but she had this affinity for Yoda. And a lot of people I feel are kind of like that, like with Baby Yoda. It's like the non-Star Wars nerds. Like we're knee deep in the Star Wars stuff. But there's people that like I know at work that have never watched a Star What Wars movie that are like, oh man, I love Baby Yoda. I watch every episode of Mando because of Baby Yoda. It's like it's so funny. It's kind of brought it to all like the what do they call the normies in Harry Potter? I
Muggles?
Forgot. Muggles, yes. Yeah. It brought Star Wars to the Muggles.
And that's and I've seen some non-Star Wars fans. They wouldn't touch Star Wars with a 10-foot pole, but they're laughing at the Yoda memes and they're watching episodes, and it's like, okay, yeah, well, and it's funny because that's what they wanted to do with the sequel trilogy, right? They wanted to broaden the base. They wanted to expand it out, and to a certain extent they did, to a certain extent they didn't. They weren't 100% successful, but this is doing it. And it's like, okay, well, this shows you. I mean, yes, it's a cute character. It's lightning in a bottle for sure. They maybe more luck than intent, but it shows you that it can be done, that it can be expanded out. You can be consistent with the lore, and people will love you for it. Yeah, absolutely. And isn't it funny how, and maybe this isn't their fault. I mean, no one really could have predicted the Baby Yoda phenomenon, but isn't it funny, like Disney, they release this stuff like the Sith Troopers, and these marketing guys are like, oh, this is going to be hot. Yes. We're going to release the red Stormtroopers. This is going to be so hot. This is going to be like unbelievably hot, and it kind of falls flat. Yes. But then they hide Baby Yoda like, oh, no big deal. Like this thing is not going to make a difference. Like no one's going to care about this thing. And then Mando drops, and this thing is like the biggest thing. It's like Elvis. It's like. Sometimes you think it's going to hit. You think okay, these kind of things. But sometimes just things just explode, and you can't explain it. Like, for example, the purple wall in Tomorrowland, to bring that back to the parks. The that was the original Instagram wall. It was just a purple wall. It was just something that they painted, and just this thing, and now it's turned into its own thing. It's turned into like this big phenomenon where you have Instagram walls all over the parks now. It just took on a life of its own. So it just happens. It just happens. Sometimes that happens. But and from what I understand, they hid Baby Yoda because of spoilers and stuff, which is fine.
That's fair.
I heard them. They would have loved to have been on the bleeding edge of that. Believe me, people were making stuff. It was just they were that desperate for Baby Yoda content or Grogu content, and sometimes you just don't know. Frozen. I think they had ideas. Okay, well, it's sisters. We have dual merchandising opportunities. This is going to be great. No idea. They just had no clue.
Right. They thought it would be another Tangled. Successful, definitely. Yeah. But they thought it'd be another Tangled princess movie. Mm-hmm. And it turned out to be this gigantic hit. Mm-hmm. That they were really caught by surprise. I think the same thing happened with Baby Yoda. Grogu was just like, okay, yeah, he's cute. But they had no idea. I mean, they had
no idea. But, what's really interesting about this is even though Grogu is... It's that it's that carrot that gets you in the door. It's that weenie that gets you in.
Yeah.
It's still strong. It's still a strong show on its own, and it's keeping audiences. And I think that's the real success of Mandalorian. It's not just about Grogu. It's about, hey, your attention is fixated on the larger story around him.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes you hungry. Like if you're like a muggle or whatever, getting into this, you're like, Baby Yoda, might be the gateway drug. Yeah. but then once you're in, it's like, ooh, but I want to, what about these Mandalorians though? I want to learn about them. Yeah. Ooh, what about these Jedi? I want to learn about them. Mm-hmm. Oh, what about who's Admiral Thrawn? I want to learn about him. Yes. And then you start to really, you start to basically, you become a super fan.
Yeah.
Little by little,
Oh, yeah, and it takes real craft. It takes real mastery to pull that off.
Yeah.
These are just the guys that do it, though, so it's awesome.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dre. Brother, I always appreciate you coming on. I really do appreciate